Welcome to demo number 5 in our series of videos that looks at Data Services Manager version 9.0. And again, I wanted to look at the VCF automation, VCF9 integration, but this time using supervisor namespaces as a resource for your data services. Now, again, the provider has the environment configured. We're just having a look at data services once more. And as the previous video showed, we have the connection to our DSM. So we're going to have a look at the data service policy again, which once again just ties organizations to the different data services that we have available. Now, we would have seen most of this in the previous demonstration as well, but now we want to focus on the namespace-based infrastructure policy, and you can see the name of it here. Now I'm going to just pop back to the vSphere client and I'm going to have a look at the Data Services Manager section. And once again, just have a look at the infrastructure policies. And you'll note that there are two policies, and this is the vSphere namespace one. So alongside traditional DSM managed infrastructure policies, we can also have policies that are based on supervisor namespaces. Okay, so let's go back and just complete the look at the data service policy. We'll just click through the remainder of this. As I said, there's a more detailed description in the previous demo. But now what we want to do is we want to have a look at where this namespace actually is. And we've placed it in the provider consumption organization. So this is something that the provider can use for themselves in order to host different services. And we built the namespace within a project within that organization, and that is the namespace that we were using for the policy, the data service policy. Now I'm going to change from the provider consumption organization to a tenant organization. And I'm going to pop into this tenant and show you that I have some namespaces created in a project. And from within those namespaces, I am going to request the creation of a database. So again, lots of services available to tenants within VCF automation. But as I said, the focus here is to build a database. And I have one created already, but I'm going to create another one. And I'll go through these steps again. Once more, you would have seen many of these steps in the previous demo. But what's different this time is the infrastructure policy. So instead of selecting a DSM managed infrastructure policy, I'm going to select a supervisor based one. And notice now that you get different storage policies, you get different VM classes because these are representative of a supervisor namespace. But apart from that, the workflow is identical to a DSM managed workflow for an infrastructure policy. So it's in progress. Let's go and have a look at what's happening under the covers. Again, in the DSM portal, you can see the database has been created, so you have full visibility there. But now if we come out into the vSphere client, what we'll see is within the namespace that we have selected for our infrastructure policy, which is DBAS DSM namespace, I start to see a VKS, a vSphere Kubernetes cluster being built to back our database. So rather than DSM creating Kubernetes databases, which it has always done in the past and continues to do so with a DSM managed policy, with an infrastructure policy that's based on a supervisor namespace, we actually build a VKS cluster to host our database. And you can see that taking place there as well. So hopefully you get the idea that we have really nice integration features with VCF 9.0 and VCF automation, and just showing you that once the database has been completely set up, it looks like any of the other database demonstrations we've seen in the past. You can get your connection string and all that good stuff. So again, it just remains for me to say that if you're interested in learning more about DSM and especially DSM 9.0, pop along to cormachogan.com where I have a wealth of information. And thank you for watching.